Okay, so picture this. You're scrolling through your feed,
Hmm.
and suddenly, bam, news breaks about a solar panel.
Okay.
So efficient, it could power your entire house with just a sliver of sunlight.
Wow, yeah. That's the dream, isn't it? The holy grail of renewable energy.
Exactly. Or how about this? Phones that fold out into full-blown tablets.
Yeah,
Screens so thin and flexible, they're practically made of magic.
we're getting there.
But here's the thing that blows my mind. All these incredible innovations, they all hinge on something so fundamental, we often take it for granted. Materials.
It's easy to overlook, isn't it? We're so focused on the possibilities
Right.
that we forget the building blocks themselves.
And discovering those building blocks, new materials with mind-blowing properties,
Right.
it has always been a bit of a shot in the dark. Imagine scientists painstakingly mixing and testing countless combinations of elements in a lab,
Yeah.
just hoping for a breakthrough.
It's a meticulous and often frustratingly slow process.
Yeah.
A bit like trying to crack a complex code with countless possible combinations.
And that's where today's deep dive gets really wild.
Okay.
We're talking about deep learning, that brainy offshoot of AI that's changing the game
Mm-hmm.
in pretty much every field imaginable. Except this time,
Yeah.
it's taking on the world of material science.
What's so fascinating is that deep learning isn't bound by the same limitations as traditional research methods.
Okay.
Instead of relying on trial and error, we can now feed vast amounts of data
Right.
into these algorithms and let them uncover hidden relationships between a material's structure, its composition, and its property.
Oh,
Connections that might have taken us decades,
wow.
even centuries to unearth otherwise.
So instead of mixing up chemicals and crossing our fingers,
Yeah.
we can now ask a computer to predict how a material will behave.
You're getting the hang of it. It's about leveraging the power of data to guide our search
Okay.
for the next generation of materials.
I have to admit, the thought of AI designing materials with properties we can only dream of.
Yeah.
It's both exhilarating and a touch intimidating.
Sure.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
let's take a step back and make sure we're on the same page.
Agreed. A little grounding never hurt anyone.
When we talk about materials science, we're essentially delving into the DNA of, well, everything around us.
Precisely. It's the study of what things are made of, their composition, and how the arrangement of their atoms, their structure, determines their properties. Why is steel strong yet brittle, while rubber is flexible and resilient?
Okay.
It all boils down to the intricate dance of atoms within.
And that's where deep learning comes in, right? Like a super-powered microscope that can not only see the atoms, but understand their intricate dance.
Exactly. Imagine feeding a deep learning algorithm a mountain of data about different materials, their structures, their properties, how they were made, how they performed under stress, how they reacted to heat, and suddenly you have this incredible tool that can start to see patterns and predict the behavior of materials we haven't even synthesized yet.
It's like having a crystal ball for material scientists. What are some of the ways this is actually playing out in the field? Give me some real-world examples.
Well, let's start with something you interact with every single day, your phone or computer. They wouldn't exist without silicon, the workhorse material of the digital age.
Okay, silicon. I'm picturing shiny computer chips and those little black squares on circuit boards.
You got it. Now, silicon's atomic structure, how those atoms are arranged and interact, is absolutely crucial for its ability to conduct electricity, withstand heat, and form the building blocks of our digital world. Traditionally, understanding these interactions has relied on complex simulations using methods like density functional theory.
Density functional theory.
Yeah.
It sounds intense.
It is. It involves incredibly complex equations and requires massive computing power, but it's been the gold standard for predicting how atoms behave in materials. However, with deep learning, researchers have developed what they call force fields, essentially sets of rules that govern how atoms interact.
So these deep learning-powered force fields are like shortcuts.
Exactly. They bypass the need for those computationally expensive simulations. In the research paper we delved into, there's a fascinating example of a deep learning force field specifically designed for silicon. What's remarkable is that this force field can predict silicon's behavior with incredible accuracy. And here's the kicker. It's thousands of times faster than traditional methods.
Thousands of times faster. That's mind-boggling. What does that kind of speed up mean in practical terms?
It means we can start to explore the behavior of silicon at a level of detail and complexity that was simply impossible before. We're talking about simulating systems with millions, even billions of atoms, allowing us to design the next generation of smaller, faster, and more efficient microchips.
This is incredible. but we're just scratching the surface, right? What about predicting a material's properties just from its chemical formula? That one really blew me away.
It is pretty wild, isn't it? Imagine having a tool that could analyze a chemical formula, something like H2O for water, and predict its properties, that it's liquid at room temperature, transparent, and essential for life.
It's like having a universal translator for chemistry.
A great way to put it. One of the most exciting breakthroughs in this area is the development of deep learning models, like the crystal graph convolutional neural network, or CGCNN for short.
CGCNN catchy.
Right. Now imagine feeding this model the basic elements of a material, like throwing ingredients into a computational cauldron. The CGCNN then analyzes how these elements might bond based on their properties and spits out predictions about the resulting material's strength, conductivity, and so on.
So we're talking about inputting something like iron carbon and a few other elements, and the CGCNN could tell us if we've stumbled upon a steel alloy that's lighter and stronger than anything we've ever seen.
You're getting the idea. This model, trained on vast databases of material properties, can sift through mountains of potential combinations and pinpoint those with the most promising characteristics. And the accuracy is astounding, especially for properties like formation energy, which essentially tells us how stable a material is. The researchers even used it to identify potentially stable perovskite materials, which are all the rage in solar cell research right now because of their incredible efficiency.
It's like having a digital scout combing through the vast wilderness of potential materials and planting a flag on the most valuable resources.
And it gets even more exciting.
Okay, you're going to have to spill the beans.
Yeah.
What could be more exciting than this?
Well, what if we could go beyond static data, like chemical formulas, and actually analyze images and spectra from real-time experiments?
Well, you're talking about those colorful graphs and those mesmerizing images from electron microscopes, the ones that always remind me of abstract art.
Precisely. Those images and spectra contain a gold mine of information about a material structure, its defects, its behavior under different conditions. The challenge is that extracting this information often requires painstaking analysis by trained experts who might spend hours, even days, poring over a single image.
I can imagine. Trying to spot a single atom out of place must be like searching for a needle in a haystack the size of a planet.
And that's where deep learning is once again changing the game. Imagine training an algorithm to see patterns in these images, patterns that might be too subtle for even the most seasoned human eye to catch.
So like a superpower detective that can spot a single clue hidden in a mountain of evidence. That's an incredible way to think about it. So instead of relying on the equivalent of like a magnifying glass, we're handing material scientists a high-powered digital microscope
Right.
that never gets tired or overlooks a detail.
And it's not just about analyzing those static images. Researchers are even using deep learning to analyze like real-time data from experiments.
Okay.
Imagine an AI assistant that can monitor the synthesis of a material,
Okay.
analyzing how its properties change in response to temperature, pressure, or the introduction of other elements, and then like tweak those parameters on the fly to achieve a specific outcome.
It's like having an AI co-pilot that's constantly adjusting course to ensure a perfect landing.
A very apt analogy. And speaking of perfect landings, there's one more application of deep learning in material science that I think you'll find particularly intriguing.
There, you're going to have to spill the beans. What could be more exciting than this?
Well, remember how we talked about the vast amounts of data locked away in scientific papers just waiting to be unlocked? Well, deep learning is proving to be an invaluable tool for mining that treasure trove of knowledge.
Right. We touched on this earlier, the idea of using deep learning to extract information from those dense research papers.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Every year, countless studies are published,
Right.
each one containing valuable nuggets of information about different materials, their properties, the methods used to create them.
Okay.
But extracting that information manually is a monumental task.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose of knowledge.
Precisely. But deep learning models can process information at an incredible speed,
Okay.
sifting through mountains of text and data to extract the most relevant insights. We're talking about building massive databases of material properties, synthesis techniques, even potential applications, all extracted and organized by AI.
So it's like creating this comprehensive map of the materials science landscape, where each data point, each study, each experiment adds a new layer of detail.
And with each new layer, we gain a deeper understanding of the materials that make up our world and the potential for discovering new ones.
This has been an incredible journey. But I have to ask, are there any limitations to what deep learning can do in material science?
It's a great question, and the answer is, of course, there are always limitations. Deep learning isn't magic.
Wow.
One of the biggest challenges is the need for massive, high-quality data sets.
Right, we've talked about that deep learning algorithms are like hungry students. They need a lot of good food, meaning data, to learn effectively.
Exactly. And just like feeding a student a steady diet of junk food will lead to problems,
Right.
feeding a deep learning algorithm low-quality, incomplete, or biased data will lead to inaccurate or unreliable predictions.
So garbage in, garbage out, as they say. What other challenges are there?
Another challenge is something we call the black box problem.
Black box. It sounds a bit mysterious.
It is a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay.
You see, with deep learning, we can train these incredibly complex models that make remarkably accurate predictions.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's difficult to understand exactly how they arrive at those predictions.
So we can see what goes in the data and we can see what comes out the predictions. But the inner workings of the model remain a bit of a mystery.
Precisely. And this can be a challenge in material science because we don't just want accurate predictions.
Right.
We want to understand the underlying physics and chemistry, the fundamental reasons why a material behaves the way it does.
Because understanding the why allows us to not just predict, but to innovate, to design new materials with even more incredible property.
Exactly. And that's why researchers are constantly working on ways to make these deep learning models more transparent,
Okay.
to peek inside that black box and gain a deeper understanding of how they work.
So even though deep learning is accelerating our progress, it's still essential to keep pushing the boundaries of our fundamental understanding of materials.
Absolutely. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Deep learning helps us explore, discover, and design, while our growing understanding of materials allows us to build even more powerful and insightful models.
It's an exciting time to be alive, wouldn't you say? The future of material science seems limitless.
Absolutely. And the best part is we're just at the very beginning of this incredible journey.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
But this has left me thinking, if we can teach machines to design new materials, what does that mean for the future of our world? What incredible innovations lie just beyond the horizon waiting to be discovered? It's a question worth pondering.
Indeed it is.
A huge thank you to our expert for joining us on this fascinating exploration. And to our listeners, as always, thank you for diving deep with us. Until next time, keep those minds curious.